Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Nepakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Israel-Hamas set for crucial Gaza peace talks in Egypt. US President Trump urges both sides to move fast, optimistic about first phase completing this week. Differences persist in the legislative corridors as shutdown continues in the US. White House warns of imminent layoffs even as Democrats stick to the demands of healthcare subsidies. France unveils new government amid political deadlock. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu assembles cabinet amid intense protest over his proposed public spending cuts. 49 killed and hundreds evacuated after Nepal hit by heavy rain and flood. Alert issued for Indian state of Bihar. Also rescue and relief operation underway in landslide-hit Darjeeling. And in Women's World Cup 2025, Indian women overpower Pakistan by 88 runs. Kranti Gore heroics help women in blue register back-to-back wins. And on to the details now. Israel and Hamas will hold indirect negotiations in Egypt on Monday amid hopes for a possible agreement on ending the Gaza conflict based on Donald Trump's ceasefire plan. Now, Trump has promoted a 20-point plan aimed at ending the fighting in Gaza, securing the release of remaining hostages, and defining the territory's future. Also, Israel and Hamas have agreed to parts of the plan. Well, Hamas on Friday accepted the hostage release and several other elements, but sidestepped contentious points, including calls for its disarmament, which it has long rejected. Also, Trump welcomed Hamas's response, saying he believed Hamas had shown it was ready for a lasting peace. He told Israel to stop bombing Gaza immediately, but its attacks on the enclave have continued. And speaking to reporters ahead of the talks, President Trump sounded an optimistic note, saying that he and a lot of countries surrounding Israel had some very good meetings with Hamas.
Yeah, we did it very quickly. We had some very good meetings. The countries of the world, a lot of the countries surrounding Israel, frankly, Muslim, Arab, and many others have had great meetings with Hamas. And it looks like it's working. So we'll wait for a little while, see how it all turns out.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the responsibility lies with Hamas to fully accept the peace plan.
Well, we accepted the deal, as did all the world. It was President Trump's plan. Hamas says that it accepted the deal. Now the onus is on Hamas. This plan consists of two parts. The first part is releasing all the hostages. Israel makes a tactical withdrawal, stays in Gaza. And then the second part is meant to demilitarize Gaza and disarm Hamas. That will be negotiated. Of course, I can't tell you if Hamas will agree to it. I think that it's possible. I hope it'll happen, but I can't guarantee that it'll happen. And so if it doesn't happen, what President Trump has said is that he will back Israel completely in acting forcefully against Hamas. Well, let's hope that, that we can finish it the easy way and not the hard way.
And for more, we have Akshay Dongre joining us on this. Well, Akshay, Israel and Hamas to hold indirect negotiations today. What exactly is on the table in this first phase of talks? And are we looking at serious steps toward a full ceasefire? Or what makes it more acceptable to both Israel and Hamas at this point in the conflict?
Well, Ipakshi, what we are looking at right now is obviously, ways to find how to end this conflict and how both of the parties, Israel and Hamas, are going to come to an understanding that will facilitate a return of the hostages and cessation of hostilities as far as the two parties are concerned. But what we are seeing right now is a positive outcome as far as the meetings are concerned. We'll have to wait and watch that how the two parties actually negotiate, especially on the sticking points like the disarmament of Hamas is one point which has not been agreed to by Hamas as of now. As far as complete withdrawal is concerned, Israel is saying that they are making a tactical retreat and that they will maintain their presence in Gaza. Now, you have to see that many of these parties also have to act in their defense as far as their support base is concerned. For example, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will have to act in a way that also helps his political standing in Israel as the prime minister. So he cannot just make claims that yes, we are now making a retreat after such an extensive operation. Similarly, for Hamas, they cannot disarm themselves and throw themselves at the mercy of Israeli defense forces that can at any point of time claim any false flag and then wipe out the entire Hamas leadership if they disarm themselves. So both of them have their own sort of points which have to be worked on yet. But what we are seeing is a positive outcome, but it depends how this continues, especially what is the consistency of the talks and the intent to end the war.
All right. Akshay, Trump's 20-point plan is being treated as a foundation for the talks. And given Hamas's rejection of disarmament, as you said, that Hamas cannot disarm itself, and Israel's continued airstrikes meanwhile, how realistic is a sustainable ceasefire under the current terms of the plan?
Well, once hostages are returned, then the onus is on Israeli defense forces. And from the trend that we are seeing, the IDF and especially the Israeli leadership is not actually in any. It doesn't appear that they want a ceasefire. Especially as far as their operations are concerned, they clearly have a military edge, a technological edge over Hamas. They have support of the world's biggest military, that is the United States. They have had support from many of their European allies, funds coming in, weapons coming in. Whereas on the other hand, Hamas is absolutely no match to the military capabilities of the IDF. So once the hostages are returned, Hamas, gives the only bargaining power that they had. Second thing is about Israel. They also have to ensure that the hostages are returned, but also have to ensure that no further terror attack from Hamas takes place. Against the Israeli citizens. That is their priority. But the kind of consistent attacks that are taking place clearly threaten the entire process of ceasefire. So that is the biggest thing. Many of the innocent people have died. In fact, what we are seeing is relentless killing of Palestinians in these Israeli attacks. Now, whether these are Hamas or whether these are innocent civilians is the biggest question. In fact, many of them are innocent, as it has been proven on the ground. So Israel will also have to, limit itself as far as provocations are concerned, unless they want these negotiations to fail.
All right. So continuous attacks and hostages release, of course, is a big question. But Akshay, what role are Egypt and other regional actors there right now playing in these negotiations? How might their interests shape the outcome of this indirect dialogue?
Well, honestly, as far as the conflict is concerned, they have proved to be useless as of now. They have not brought in any yield. Their actions haven't yielded any results. Because we have seen Qatar being a party to it. We have seen others trying to get a negotiation done, but it's ultimately the US that has getting a ceasefire done on the ground. There are countries from different regional blocks to other nations that have made all the tall claims about standing with the Palestinian cause and standing with Palestine, but have really utterly failed to do actually anything on the ground. That perhaps also has given Israel a lot of power to do anything and get away with it, honestly. So they have proved to be useless, but let's see with the US pressuring whether Qatar and other countries that will actually would want to listen to the US will bring any kind of strong action on the ground.
All right. And if these talks do move forward, Akshay, what could be the next step towards actually implementing the Trump's plan?
Well, we don't know yet, Lipakshi, because it's all uncertain. So as of now, the only focus is on bringing a ceasefire, returning of the hostages and withdrawal of Israeli Defense Forces. And then, it depends what White House decides, whether they would want a complete withdrawal of Israeli Defense Forces or whether there will be a U-turn by Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli forces as far as Gaza is concerned. Because after hostage return, they may just say that, we do not agree to the terms and we are making comebacks, and there's hardly anything can do about it.
Absolutely. The future stays very uncertain right now. Thank you so much, Akshay, for all those details. And meanwhile, a day before the conflict's second anniversary, Israelis gathered at the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv on Sunday, praying for the return of the hostages. Many in the crowd sat in silence while others wept or joined chants led from a makeshift stage. On October 7, 2023, Hamas's attack on Israel triggered the conflict in Gaza. Hamas killed 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and about 251 were taken hostage. While Trump administration officials issued a warning on Sunday that Americans will increasingly feel the pain of an ongoing U.S. government shutdown. Now, most federal operations remained shuttered as no tangible signs of negotiations have emerged between the U.S. congressional leaders since President Trump met them last week. Also, Democrats are refusing to give in over their demands for continued government health care subsidies in the budget. Also, White House has warned that plans are being finalized for the firing of thousands of federal workers. Shutdowns are a periodic feature of gridlocked Washington when the two parties cannot agree on the budget priorities. But this time, the stakes are higher. U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted that government has already started to permanently fire, not merely furlough government employees. Also, Trump responded to a question on federal workers cut off, saying that the things are taking place right now.
Taking place right now, and it's all because of the Democrats. The Democrats are causing the loss of a lot of jobs with their, it's a shutdown. It's their shutdown, not our shutdown, it's their shutdown.
Well, the shutdown began on October 1st, the start of federal fiscal 2026, after Senate Democrats rejected a short-term funding measure that would keep federal agencies open through November 21st. While Democrats are demanding a permanent extension of enhanced premium tax credits to help Americans purchase private health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, and assurances that the White House will not try to unilaterally cancel spending agreed to in any deal. On Monday, the Senate is due to vote for a fifth time on the stopgap funding bill that has already passed the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, and on a Democratic alternative. Neither measure is expected to receive the 60 votes needed to advance. Now, with a 53-47 seat majority and one Republican opposed to the House funding bill, Republican leaders need at least 8 Democrats to support the measure, but have seen only 3 cross the aisle so far. And still to come, DD India NewsHour. Syria concludes electoral college voting for transitional parliament as vote counting begins. U.S. military strikes 4th suspected drug vessel off Venezuela amid escalating anti-cartel campaign. And Moroccan Gen Z leads the 9th day of nationwide protest demanding government reform and end to corruption.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative. From current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order, DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India, India's voice to the
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. And moving on, U.S. President Donald Trump attended the Titans of the Sea, a salute to the fleet, commemorating the U.S. Navy's 250th birthday on Sunday. He was joined by First Lady Melania Trump aboard the USS George H.W. Bush. The Trumps watched a military demonstration while standing on the deck of the aircraft carrier. Navy destroyers launched missiles and fired shells into the Atlantic Ocean. Navy SEALs descended from helicopters and fighter jets catapulted off. Behind a bulletproof glass, Trump said the story of the U.S. Navy is a tale of loyalty, sacrifice and commitment stretching back 250 years.
From the American Revolution until today, the story of the U.S. Navy is a tale of loyalty, sacrifice, and commitment stretching back 250 years. So we're celebrating 250. Problem with Vietnam, we stopped fighting to win. We would have won easy. We would have won Afghanistan easy. We would have won every war easy. But we got politically correct. Let's take it easy. We're not politically correct anymore, just so you understand. We win. Now we win. We don't want to be politically correct anymore.
Well, tensions are running high in Chicago and Portland as President Donald Trump pushes forward with controversial plans to federalize National Guard troops, moves that Democratic governors call a violation of state authority. Chicago is on edge as 300 Illinois National Guards prepare to take to the streets after President Donald Trump ordered troops to America's third largest city. Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker remains defiant and bitterly opposed to the act. He calls the federal move un-American and an attack on the state's autonomy. Trump has branded Chicago a war zone as a justification for deploying soldiers. In Oregon, the standoff has deepened. A federal judge has temporarily blocked a similar order, ruling that protests in Portland do not meet the constitutional standard for a rebellion. But that hasn't put a lid to the controversy. California Governor Gavin Newsom confirmed that 300 Guard members from his state have already been sent north to Oregon, raising new legal and jurisdictional questions. The administration claims federal intervention is warranted by violent unrest, yet crime in these cities is reportedly falling. Meanwhile, violence erupted in Chicago. Border Patrol agents shot a woman after a vehicle confrontation, marking a dramatic flashpoint as tempers boil over. With lawsuits piling up and protests planned through the week, both sides appear to have prepared for a long haul, setting the stage for a prolonged and politically charged showdown. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, U.S. forces hit another vessel allegedly carrying illegal drugs off the coast of Venezuela on Saturday evening. Now, his comments come 2 days after the U.S. military killed 4 people in a strike in the Caribbean on a vessel allegedly carrying illegal drugs just off the coast of Venezuela. It was at least the 4th such attack in recent weeks. The administration has not provided evidence for claims that the targeted boats were carrying drugs. Trump told Congress last week that he had determined the U.S. to be in a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. Well, Trump said that the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean had halted drug trafficking from South America. And in response to U.S. strikes in Venezuela, Russia has expressed its full support to Caracas. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Juan Gil said that his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, gave a full expression of support and solidarity in a phone call between the two. Russia also said it was committed to preserving Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. And Australia signed a new defence agreement with Papua New Guinea, its first in more than 70 years, as Canberra seeks to block China from expanding its security presence in the Pacific. Now, under the Pak Defence Treaty, which is the first signed by Papua New Guinea, Australia and its northern neighbour are obliged to come to each other's aid if attacked. The treaty allows as many as 10,000 Papua New Guineans to serve with the Australian Defence Force under dual arrangements. Also, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said during a joint press conference that with his Papua New Guinea counterpart James Marape in Canberra, that both nations have agreed not to undertake any activities or enter into any agreements that would compromise the implementation of the treaty. And members of Syria's electoral colleges finished voting for new lawmakers on Sunday. Vote counting has begun with some preliminary results expected on Sunday night and the official winners to be announced by Monday. Local committees in Syria cast their ballots for members of a transitional parliament, with a third of the new lawmakers to be appointed directly by interim leader Ahmed al-Shara. Now, over 1,500 candidates, including only 14% women, are running for the assembly with a 30-month renewable term. Shara will appoint 70 of the 210 members, while local committees chosen by the Electoral Commission will select the remaining two-thirds. However, the Druze majority Shweda province and the Kurdish-held northeast are currently excluded due to lack of government control, leaving their 32 seats vacant. Around 6,000 people took part in Sunday's selection process. And Japan is on the brink of a historic leadership shift. Sanae Takaichi, a staunch conservative, is set to become the nation's first female prime minister. But her rise comes after years of political turbulence marked by Shinzo Abe's assassination and a string of short-lived governments. With inflation scandals and voter disillusionment shaking the ruling LDP, Takaichi inherits a fragile mandate. The spotlight now turns to her, not just as a symbol, but as a leader tasked with restoring Japan's political balance. Also, since Abe's death, Japan has been struggling to get stability and an acceptable face as the prime minister. Well, 2012 to 2020, Shinzo Abe rolled out Abenomics, a bold plan to boost Japan's economy using government spending, easier money policies and reforms. In July 2022, Abe was tragically shot during a campaign speech, leaving the country in shock and political uncertainty. September 2022, Yoshihide Suga stepped in after Abe but struggled with COVID-19 and lost public support. October 2021, Suga quit. Fumio Kishida took over, hoping to steady the ship. Now in 2022, Kishida got heat for rising prices and ties to a controversial religious group, hurting his image. In 2023, a money scandal hit the ruling party. Kishida's popularity kept sinking, and in mid-2023, Kishida shuffled his cabinet to win back trust, but it didn't work. The ruling party started losing ground. And in 2024, a new nationalist party, Shanseato, gained support with tough talks on immigration, pulling voters away from the LDP. In August 2024, Kishida announced he was stepping down. The race to lead Japan heated up. In October 2024, veteran politician Shigeru Ishiba became prime minister, but only lasted about a year. In October 2025, Sanae Takaichi won the LDP leadership race, beating Shinjiro Koizumi and Yoshimasa Hayashi. She's set to become Japan's first female prime minister, a historic moment. Takaichi is focused on strong defense, economic security, and stricter immigration rules. She plans to bring back Abe's economic strategy with bold spending and easier money policies. Also, despite breaking barriers, she's against some social reforms like letting married couples keep separate surnames. With Japan's future on the line, all eyes are now on Takaichi's next move. And French President Emmanuel Macron's office on Sunday unveiled a new cabinet to be led by Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu, whose most pressing and most perilous task will be to win support for a 2026 budget in a fragmented and fractious Parliament. Now, Roland Lescure, a close ally of President Emmanuel Macron, has been named Finance Minister, while former Finance Chief Bruno Le Maire takes over the defence portfolio. Key figures such as Jean-Noël Barrot at Foreign Affairs, Bruno Retailleau at the Interior Ministry and Gérald Darmanin at Justice have retained their roles. Prime Minister Lecornu has sought to win over the socialists by proposing a wealth tax, though the exempted business owners' assets to safeguard jobs in businesses. He also dismissed the use of special constitutional measures to push the budget through without a parliamentary vote. Budget negotiations have become increasingly tense, requiring careful compromises among three ideologically divided blocs in a fragmented parliament. And France is experiencing contentious and unprecedented political instability for more than 12 months, marked by a hung parliament, brief governments and a widespread protest. Let's take a look at the ongoing political turmoil in the country right now. In January 2024, Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne resigned after struggling to pass key reforms. In May 2024, unrest breaks out in the French territory of New Caledonia over controversial voting rights reforms. In June 2024, the far-right National Rally secures 31.5% of the vote in the European Parliament elections. President Macron dissolves the National Assembly and calls for snap legislative elections. Widespread protests erupted during the election campaign. In July 2024, the legislative elections resulted in a hung parliament. Prime Minister Attal resigns, initiating a long period after a caretaker government. In September 2024, Michel Barnier is appointed Prime Minister, but his government is toppled in December by a no-confidence vote over budget disputes. In December 2024, Francois Bayrou is appointed Prime Minister, becoming the third person to hold the role within a year. In January 2025, Bayrou's government survives no confidence motion, but his position remains fragile. In September 2025, Bayrou's government falls, sparking a political crisis. In September 2025, Sébastien Lecornu is appointed the seventh Prime Minister of Macron's presidency. In October 2025, Lecornu, with a new cabinet, faces the immediate and risky task of passing the 2026 budget through a highly fragmented parliament. And young Moroccans took to the streets and cities across the kingdom for the 9th straight day of protest, calling for an end to corruption and a change of government. Well organized online by the Gen Z, whose founders have remained anonymous, the rallies have swept the usually stable North African country since September 27th. In Casablanca, the crowd massed in the working class El Fida district, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Aziz Akhanouch. Well, the protesters have demanded reforms to social services, especially health and education, and voiced anger over social inequality. Gen Z 212, which has more than 180,000 members on Discord, insists on the non-violent nature of its protest, and the gatherings since then have been largely peaceful. And in Hungary, thousands of protesters gathered at Kossuth Square in front of the parliament on Sunday, voicing opposition to Prime Minister Viktor Orbán amid economic stagnation and high inflation ahead of the 2026 parliamentary elections. Orbán faces his toughest election next year as the country's economic challenges persist and inflation hampers potential interest rates cut by the central bank. The crowd criticized Orbán's close ties to Moscow while likening him to failed communist leaders. And the death toll from an Indonesian school collapse rose to 54 on Monday as rescuers searched for more than a dozen still missing. Part of the multi-story building on Indonesia's Java island collapsed suddenly last week as students gathered for afternoon prayers. Rescuers were still working around the clock in the rubble of the school. At least 13 people were still missing. Investigators have been examining the cause of the collapse, but initial indications suggest that substandard construction may have contributed to the incident. And still to come on DD India News. Piyush Goyal to visit Qatar from October 6 to 7 to co-chair Qatar-India Joint Commission meeting. Indian Navy to commission second anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft vessel Androth. boosting indigenous maritime capabilities. And India's Health Ministry holds a high-level meeting on cough syrup safety following child deaths. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Israel-Hamas set for crucial Gaza peace talks in Egypt. US President Trump urges both sides to move fast, optimistic about first phase completing this week. Differences persist in the legislative corridors as shutdown continues in the US. White House warns of imminent layoffs even as Democrats stick to their demands of healthcare subsidies. France unveils new government amid political deadlock. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu assembles cabinet amid intense protest over his proposed public spending cuts. 49 killed and hundreds evacuated after Nepal hit by heavy rain and flood. Alert issued for Indian state of Bihar. Also rescue and relief operation underway in landslide hit Darjeeling. And in Women's World Cup 2025, Indian women overpower Pakistan by 88 runs. Kranti Gore heroics help women in blue register back-to-back wins. And moving on, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar weighed in on key global and economic challenges at the Kautilya Economic Conclave in New Delhi on Sunday. From trade relations with the US to shifting geopolitical dynamics and energy security, Minister Jaishankar outlined India's strategic priorities.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Sunday said India is working to resolve trade issues with the United States. Addressing the closing session of Kautilya Economic Conclave, Jaishankar also spoke on safeguarding India's economic interests.
At the end of the day, there has got to be a trade understanding with the United States. There has to be one because it is the world's largest market, but also because it is, much of the world has reached those understandings. But it has to be an understanding where our bottom lines, our red lines are respected. In any agreement, there are things you can negotiate and there are things you can't. And I think we are pretty clear about that. And we have to find that landing ground. And that's been the conversation really which has been going on since March.
The minister also spoke about the emerging reality of regional multipolarity, calling it a transition from an old world order to a complex, often contradictory phase.
How do we actually practice this multi-alignment or this multiple relationships with different agendas and with different partners, sometimes in different regions? This is really the external challenge. The internal one, of course, is to improve every dimension of our comprehensive national power. And in my view, we've laid a very solid foundation in the last decade. I think these 5 years, given the international environment, will test us like it would test every other country in the world.
On energy security, Jaishankar pointed to the evolving dynamics, especially the US becoming a major energy exporter. He raised concerns over price caps, sanctions, and subsidies, questioning the role of market forces in such a disrupted system.
Just as the US has emerged as a champion of fossil fuels, China has also established itself actually as a leader in renewables. So pretty much any path you take on renewables, finally all roads lead back there as well. Deriving from that, related to that, if one looks at the role of big tech, now there have always been big companies driving the global economy, but the position, the salience of big tech in today's world really represents a new level of prominence and influence of a few companies.
The fourth edition of the Kautilya Economic Conclave, held in New Delhi from October 3rd to 5th under the theme Seeking Prosperity in Turbulent Times, concluded with keynote speech by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. The conclave was inaugurated on Friday by Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, also, Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Gore is visiting Doha for the meeting of the Qatar-India Joint Commission on Trade and Commerce from 6th to 7th October. Well, this visit underscores the importance that India attaches to its trade and investment ties with Qatar, one of our important trading partners in the Gulf Cooperation Council. With bilateral trade estimated at over $14 billion USD in 2024-25. Now, the two sides are expected to hold wide-ranging discussions reviewing bilateral trade performance, addressing existing trade barriers and non-tariff issues, and exploring avenues to enhance trade and investment flows. The talks are likely to include deliberations on the proposed India-Qatar FTA with the way forward on finalization of the terms of reference. This is for the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, which will further strengthen economic cooperation between both the countries. And the Indian Navy is set to commission Androth, the second anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft, at a ceremony today at the Naval Dockyard in Visakhapatnam. Now, the commissioning of Androth marks yet another milestone in Indian Navy's steady stride towards capability enhancement and indigenization. Built by Garden Research shipbuilders and engineers at Kolkata, Androth is a testimony to India's growing maritime self-reliance with over 80% indigenous content. The commissioning of Androth will significantly bolster the Navy's ASW capabilities, especially in counting threats in littoral waters. Together, these inductions in recent months, Anala, Nistar, Udaygiri, Nilgiri and now Androth reflect the Navy's balanced growth across the spectrum of maritime operations, embodying the spirit of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. And in view of the recent concerns relating to the quality administration of cough syrups, India's Health Ministry convened a high-level meeting with states and UTs on quality and rational use of the cough syrups. The Union Health Secretary emphasized strict compliance with the revised schedule by all drug manufacturers, and thorough exercise of identification of non-compliant units must be undertaken and the strict action be taken against them. While the government exhorted states to ensure controlled use of cough syrups, particularly among children, as most coughs are self-limited and do not require pharmacological treatment. Well, the meeting follows recent reports of child deaths in Chhindwara, Madhya Pradesh, allegedly linked to contaminated cough syrups. And moving on, a devastating fire broke out at the trauma ICU of Jaipur Savai Man Singh Hospital, leaving 7 patients dead and 5 in critical condition. Authorities suspect a short circuit. The investigation is ongoing. The blaze started on the 2nd floor of the trauma ICU, reportedly due to suspected short circuit. The fire spread rapidly, releasing toxic gases that affected patients, most of whom were in coma. Hospital staff quickly evacuated patients to safer areas, but 6 of them lost their lives. The hospital is providing critical care to the injured. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over loss of lives on social media X. He said, and I quote, "The loss of lives due to a fire tragedy at a hospital in Jaipur, Rajasthan is deeply saddening. Condolences to those who have lost their loved ones. May the injured recover soon," unquote. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi penned his thoughts on V.K. Malhotra's life work and how he personified the best of our party's ethos. Prime Minister highlighted that how from politics and parliament to service and sports, V.K. Malhotra left behind an indelible impact. He wrote, and I read, a few days ago, we lost one of our senior-most leaders, Shri Vijay Kumar Malhotra ji. He lived a long and accomplished life, but more importantly, he led a life of relentless hard work, determination and service. A glimpse of his life will make everyone understand the core ethos of the RSS, the Janasangh and the BJP: courage in the face of adversity, service above self, and a deep-rooted commitment to values. From the late 1960s onwards, V.K. Malhotra ji remained a permanent figure in public life. Few leaders can claim to have such a long, unbroken span of public engagement, but its specific administration, state legislator or the parliament, Malhotra ji had seen it all. His 1999 Lok Sabha electoral village against Dr. Manmohan Singh is still remembered by supporters and opponents. And beyond politics and academia, Malhotra ji made an indelible mark in the world of sports. Archery was his greatest passion, and he served as the president of the Archery Association of India for universal decades. Under his leadership, Indian archery gained a global recognition, and he tirelessly worked to provide athletes with platform and opportunities. V.K. Malhotra ji's impact is not just in the positions he held, but in the ethos he carried forward, of putting service before self, of staying rooted in values, and of embracing challenges with courage and perseverance. And some more weather-related updates. First up from Nepal, where heavy rains triggered landslides and flash floods, blocking roads, washing away bridges and killing at least 49 people, including 38 deaths alone in Ilam district of East Nepal. Armed police force officials fear the number of casualties may rise as rescue operations continue. Torrential downpours have lashed Nepal since Friday, leaving rivers in spate in many areas in the Himalayan nation inundated. Government of Nepal has declared a public holiday on October 5th and October 6th. At least 5 people are missing, while many of others are urged to take shelter in safe places. Security personnel were deployed to assist rescue efforts with helicopters and motorboats. Rivers in the capital, Kathmandu, have also swelled, inundating settlements along their banks. Prime Minister Sushila Karki said government agencies were fully prepared to rescue and relief. Weather officials said rains were likely to lash the American nation until Monday. And more from India, now from Bihar, where there is no respite from the ongoing flood in Kosi region, with the river and its tributaries swollen and flowing above the danger mark in many places. Now, road and rail traffic is affected due to water logging. A city road in Patna near Meetapur caved in yesterday. Around 16 people died due to thunderstorm across the state during past 48 hours. Around 33 panchayats in Supaul district have become flood affected, where population is being shifted to safer places. And life in India's West Bengal's Darjeeling and Duars has become tough after heavy rain on Saturday night. So far, 18 people have lost lives in rain-related incidents. Several locals and hundreds of tourists are trapped in these areas. Hill roads in Meerut were closed after a landslide. The NDRF is engaged in rescuing operations in southern West Bengal. Several districts are waterlogged because of heavy rainfall in the neighboring state of Jharkhand. The Damodar Valley Corporation has forced to release thousands of cusecs of water from its reservoirs. Well, also, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee claims it is a conspiracy, and party workers protested at a few places before the corporation's offices. Well, the North Indian hill states and Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan are bracing for heavy rains today, as the Indian Meteorological Department has issued orange alert for parts of North India. It also issued yellow alert for Delhi following the overnight rainfall. The city is expected to experience a generally cloudy sky with several spells of light to moderate rain at more places. The weatherman has forecasted isolated heavy rain on Monday in Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, West Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, West Uttar Pradesh and East Rajasthan, while Uttarakhand will experience rainfall on both 6th and 7th of October. Several areas, including Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh, may see very heavy rainfall also today, with isolated hailstorms possible. A vast landmass is under yellow alert as of now. While in Vietnam, Typhoon Matmo is closing in on northern Vietnam, bringing strong winds and heavy rain as it nears landfall. The storm is expected to make landfall early in Quang Ninh province of Vietnam and China's Guangxi region before weakening into a low-pressure system. Authorities warn of heavy rainfall across northern Vietnam. The downpour could trigger landslides and flash floods in mountainous and coastal areas already saturated by early rains. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The Indian Navy and the Royal Navy began the bilateral maritime exercise Concon 25 off India's western coast. The 8-day drill will be held both at harbour and at sea to boost interoperability through advanced exercises across all domains of maritime operations. The Western Fleet units, led by India's indigenous aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, is taking part in the exercise. Well, Vadodara hosted the 25th annual Divyang Garba Mahotsav, a special event for differently abled participants. Organized to promote inclusion and joy, the festival draws large crowds every year. Organizers expressed hope for greater awareness and support for differently abled people. The Marwar festival in Jodhpur celebrates Rajasthan's rich art and culture. The highlight was a BSF camel contingent marching from Ghantaghar to Umeid Stadium. At the stadium, camels performed stunts and displayed training from BSF STC Jodhpur. Known for saluting on Rajpath, the contingent captivates audiences with precision and skill. The festival encourages youth participation to preserve and promote Rajasthani traditions. On Sharad Purnima, thousands of devotees gathered at Prayagraj's Triveni Sangam to take a holy dip and perform rituals. The day is believed to bring spiritual blessings. Authorities ensured smooth arrangements as devotees offered prayers and donation. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Well, welcome back, and moving on in a bit to prevent airfares from soaring yet again. This festive season, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation has asked airlines to augment flight capacities by deploying additional flights to meet high demand. Now, following this, the Aviation Ministry says Indigo has informed the regulator that it will deploy approximately 730 additional flights across 42 sectors. Air India and AI Express will have an additional 486 flights across 20 sectors. SpiceJet to deploy approximately 546 additional flights across 38 sectors. And India and the European Union will hold the 14th round of Free Trade Agreement or FTA negotiations from Monday in Brussels. India's expanding economic strength and its Make in India initiative are drawing closer and greater together from European companies, which each the country as a key partner of growth, jobs and investment. According to a new Federation of European Business in Indian survey, already over 6,000 European companies operate in India, creating more than 3 million jobs. These firms not only create jobs, invest, manufacture and innovate in India, but ensure they make in India. The European Union remains India's largest trading partner, with goods trade reaching Euro 120 billion, ahead of both the United States and China. President Ursula von der Leyen and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already set an objective to conclude the deal by the end of 2025. Well, you're watching TT India News. Our time now for some sports news. India thrashed Pakistan in the ICC Women's World Cup group encounter in Colombo on Sunday to maintain perfect record at 12-0 despite a glitchy performance in all three departments. Harleen Deol, along with Richa Ghosh and Kranti Gore, set up India's second victory of the tournament. DD India's Deepika Mehto reports for more. Team India did it yet again, and this time India's dominating performance and a strong bowling unit outnumbered Pakistan in Women's Cricket World Cup ODI format at Colombia's R. Premadasa Stadium in group stage encounter. India bowled Pakistan out for 159 to register an emphatic 88-run win. Team's best performance came from Kranti Gore, whose brilliant spell earned her Player of the Match honour. Kranti took 3 crucial wickets in the match against Pakistan.
मेरा इंडिया डेब्यू श्रीलंका में ही हुआ था एंड आज प्लेयर ऑफ द मैच भी मैं श्रीलंका में हूँ तो एंड आज वर्ल्ड कप का पहला मैच मतलब मैं मैन ऑफ द मैच हूँ तो प्लेयर ऑफ द मैच तो एक पहले तो मेरे लिए बहुत प्राउड मोमेंट है ये मुझे मेरे लिए एंड मेरी फैमिली के लिए तो आज बहुत खुश हूँ मैं
She is one of the famous lady in Sri Lanka as well because they like our Sri Lankan people, they like her very well, and also some people of course they come to see the match because of her, right? Like Tendulkar those days, right? So like Dhoni, like she's a very popular character in Sri Lanka, like you know.
Fans saw an impressive knock from Richa Ghosh too, and on the other hand, India's Sneha Rana and Deepti Sharma too took crucial wickets to end the game in dominating fashion. Congratulating on the victory, Union Minister Amit Shah took to Twitter and extended best wishes. With this, India extended their records scoreline to 12-0, whereas Pakistan faced their second consecutive defeat in the ongoing World Cup clash.
And there you saw a blistering performance by Team India, from Richa Ghosh's impressive batting to Kranti Gaud's interesting and intense bowling that restricted Pakistan and led India to another victory at Women's Cricket World Cup. First, India defeated the host Sri Lanka, and then India defeated Pakistan at Premadasa Cricket Stadium in Colombo. Now the next stop is against South Africa in India's Vizag, where India will not only aim a victory but will be moving forward with grit, determination and a lot of hard work with performance analysis to lift the title trophy. That is the aim for Team India at the ongoing Women's Cricket World Cup. With camera person Gaurav Giri, this is Deepika reporting for DD India, Colombo.
Well, the curtains came down on a historic edition of the World Para Athletic Championship in New Delhi. India not only proved its mettle as a world-class host, but also recorded its best ever performance. As a report by DD India correspondent Narayan Singh on how India's para-athletes and organisers together made this championship truly unforgettable.
The 12th edition of the World Para-Athletics Championships concluded at New Delhi's Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium on Sunday. For 9 days, the capital witnessed record-breaking performances, emotional victories, and a true celebration of human spirit. India, the proud host, showcased not just world-class organization, but also its growing sporting might. From accessibility to infrastructure, every detail reflected India's readiness to host major global events. Athletes hailed the government's strong support and world-class facilities at JLN Stadium.
First of all, I would like to say everyone who's been part of the event to make it a success. Everybody put in their heart and soul. There was no stone unturned, be it from the Government of India, Sports Authority of India, Delhi government, Paralympic Committee of India. Everybody got together and came for the event. When there was any issue, it was sorted within 10 minutes. That was the rapid, spontaneous thing we had.
This is going for first time in India World Championship, and I am very happy for this hospitality and facilities. Sport is very good, and like we're looking like new Mondo track and other facilities. And now we're going to, like, next year we have Asian Games. So government now starting work for Asian athletes who will win the medal and change some policies. This is a good thing.
This was India's biggest ever contingent, and it delivered the nation's best performance in history. Indian para-athletes made the nation proud, finishing 10th overall with a record 22 medals, including 6 gold, 9 silver and 7 bronze medals. Their performances were nothing short of inspiring. Indian athletes set 3 championship records and 7 new Asian records. There were 9 close 4th place finishes and over 13 personal bests. That's a proof of India's rising standards in para sports. Hosting the championships for the first time, India set new benchmarks in efficiency and inclusivity. From smooth logistics to enthusiastic crowds, the event truly embodied the spirit of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat.
This is not an end, but the start of a new era in the Indian sports. Indian para-athletes at the World Para Championship in New Delhi has created history by winning a record number of medals. Their dominant performance has proved that India is the new emerging powerhouse in the world of sports. With camera person Naveen, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
Well, the century-old fire dragon dance of Hong Kong came alive once again on Sunday, dazzling the city ahead of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Thousands of spectators packed the narrow streets to witness the 140-year-old tradition, where the main attraction was the fire dragon dance featuring burning incense sticks. Take a look.
同埋遊客講，因為好難得啦，見到好多地方人都嚟咗。有冇叫你打鼓就問啲啦？一齊好特別嘅就會咧。
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.